Paris Saint-Germain are European champions. They've won the Champions League in back-to-back seasons. This is not something we see very often. This is an incredible achievement. Massive congratulations to them. Luis Enrique and his side, they've done an amazing job here. They've done absolutely brilliant. And well, they deserve so much credit for the season they've had again. And it was always going to be a close game, I thought. I saw a lot of people predicting a quite fairly comfortable win for PSG. Last season, it's a complete opposite game really to what we saw last season, which was PSG absolutely annihilate Inter Milan. Just attack constantly. Inter Milan had no answer to it, and they just completely ran away with it. Absolutely wiped the floor with them, to be honest. 1-5-0. I knew it wouldn't be that sort of game this year. I knew Arsenal were just too good defensively for that to be able to happen. And it was really close. It was the closest of games, really. And it's not often we see an extra time in the Champions League final, even less that we see it go all the way to penalties. And that is the best way to win a football game, but it's also the worst way to lose a football game as well. And Arsenal, there you can see how devastated they were right at the end there. Whereas, PSG, you can see how much that meant to them winning that again. And complete difference to last season. Had to really, really work for it. Had to really, really, scrap for it, really. And we saw a completely different side to PSG to what we saw last season. We sort of seen them almost grow as a team a bit as well. I thought it'd be close. I did say for my prediction a PSG win, but the more and more close it got to kick off, the more and more I had a feeling Arsenal might do it. And there was, for a large amount of that game, where it looked like that could happen. It really was on a knife edge. It really looked like it was going to go down to the wire, and it really looked like it could go either way. It was hard to call a winner in this game, and I did wonder if it would be like that, because although PSG are they're the better side on paper. They've got the better attacking options. They've got the more, the midfield's a better unit, I would say. I think it's fair to say. They score more goals. But Arsenal's football, the way they play, to be fair to them, it suits the Champions League final. What a great Champions League team's built on, a great defence. Usually that's the key. And that was you can make a strong argument for that being the key for Arsenal yesterday. And for a while, it looked like that could be the sort of game we're getting. And Champions League finals, the thing is with them, they're very, it's very hard to stop PSG scoring for an entire 90 minutes. There's very few teams. They're one of the teams that you can't. It's very rare you'll get a 1-0 win against them. It's very hard to shut them out for an entire 90 minutes. They're one of the teams that it doesn't really work putting 11 men behind the ball. But Arsenal didn't do that. They played their stuff as well. But what I will say. About these Champions League finals as well is that they're quite often decided for 1-0. They're quite often just 1-0 games because sometimes you don't see the best of a team in the Champions League in a final because there's so much at stake. You just have to set up to win the game, and that's why they're quite often only 1-0 games. Because it's just mainly about the defensive display, and then someone steps up in the big moment and it's clinical. And as the game drags on longer, the more likely it is that happens. And what the game needed was an early goal, and that's exactly what Arsenal got, and that really suited them. That was the perfect start for Arsenal. Could not start any better for them. Going 1-0 up, and then they can try and do what they do best, which is hold on to the 1-0 lead. So many 1-0 wins this season, loads of clean sheets. Best goalkeeper in the world, one of the best, probably the best defensive partnership in the world as well. That's what their biggest strength is, and that's where they were. And that's something. If PSG have any weakness in their team, it's that their defence is a bit flimsy, and they do concede goals. And what their biggest strength has been outscoring everyone they've come up against, because there's no one can compete with the way they move the ball and the way they attack. But Arsenal are one of the only teams that can really frustrate them because of how good they are at defending, because of how strong that defence is, that title-winning defence. That's what's won Arsenal the lead this season. That's why it was going to be such an interesting test for PSG. And Arsenal taking the lead early was massive. Now, before the game even started, one of the major talking points was the fact that they left the Mikel Arteta's team selection was huge. Eze on the bench. Also, Kai Havertz leading the line instead of Victor Gyökeres was massive as well. Because, there was a lot of rumours that could happen. And because, he's got the Champions League history, Havertz, he does do this as well, Arteta. We see it at times this season in playing Havertz as a false nine. He's done it in there's been multiple big games this season he's done that in, actually, most notably recently, where they obviously lost to Man City at the Etihad. They played with Havertz as a false nine there. A lot of people questioned it, and ultimately they lost the game. However, the Havertz false nine worked to an extent because he was the one who got the goal for Arsenal in the first half, and he was the one that got them in that, or had them firmly in the game in the first half. And so every time he's done that, Arteta, it's worked to an extent. And quite often we see this with managers in major finals. They try and do something. It's a one-off game, and you can do, the tactics are different game to game, and you can set up, for an individual final, an individual game with a system you wouldn't usually go with to try and win that individual match. And sometimes it can completely backfire, but other times it can be a tactical masterclass. And I think you can't argue that yesterday, whatever the result was in the end, I think that worked at least for the first half, because ultimately Kai Havertz took the lead. So, it did do the job that it was supposed to do. And whether it opened up the wingers and whether he held the ball up and opened up the use of the wingers as much as I maybe would have, as I think they would have hoped, it still was, he still did. Ultimately, took the lead, so it was the right call to start him. The other big decision, Timber was left out, which I would have gone for him in the final, but it was a big decision though to go for Lewis Skelly, of course, ahead of Zubimendi. Zubimendi has got experience playing in finals before, not Champions League finals, I don't know, but he has played in obviously a final for the Euros, and so he's experienced, whereas there's a massive call to leave him out, and then obviously bringing Lewis Skelly, who was so good in that semi-final against Atletico. We know how much quality he has got, but to start him in this game was a massive call. It's a huge call, and because someone with as young as him, giving him that responsibility in this game is massive. But I'll tell you what, in the first half, it was very good. I do think they waited too long to bring Zubimendi on, but I do think Lewis Skelly in the first half done exactly what he was supposed to do. PSG, they've got such a dynamic midfield, all three of them play so well as a unit, and I think the job was to try and contain that. And I think Lewis Skelly, with his energy, I think he was able to do that. And I think in the first half, I thought he'd done very, very well, really stepped up for the big occasion. So I think Arteta, in that sense, got it right. I think Gyökeres, when he come on, to be fair, didn't really do as much as I think. Didn't do enough for me, to be honest, when he come on. Gyökeres, I was expecting a bit more, to be perfectly honest. Of course, now let's talk about the actual goal itself, because the opening 5 minutes, taking the lead, was a dream start for Arsenal. Kai Havertz is away. It comes from a PSG mistake. They're able to capitalise on a mistake. And he keeps going. It's a long run, and he keeps going. And usually when he's bearing that down on goal, I was expecting him to miss. He quite often misses these types of chances. We've seen him miss these big kind of one-on-one chances, and the angle was that as well. I was half expecting him to miss it, but no, he really, really took that shot so well, so convincingly. A lot of power behind that shot, and the execution of it was just perfect to put Arsenal in the lead. And well, Kai Havertz scoring again in a major European final was massive. It somewhat mirrored the goal he scored for us as well for Chelsea 5 years ago against Man City. That was a bit of a different scenario. This come from a PSG mistake. That was very much the run from Werner, which made the space for Havertz to run down through the middle. But like I said, still similar. And to go, it was a bit later on. There was later on in the first half that particular goal. But you was wondering, could they do the same thing? Could they really utilise their strong defence, be able to hold out for the entire game with the 1-0? If Kai Havertz taking the lead, could history repeat itself? I think it was always going to be a massive ask, though, to hold PSG out for an entire 90 minutes. And well, the thing is, you can't. After that, did they sit too deep? Should they maybe have played out a bit more, just because it's a real risk against PSG? Just sitting back too deep, because of you can only hold a team like that for so long in theory. But and briefly on the goal as well, I do think the keeper should have done better as well. I think the keeper needs to be saving that. A few question marks about this PSG goalkeeper, to be honest, doesn't fully convince me, and I think so. It's just, I don't know quite what's going on with their goalkeeping situation. They obviously lost Donnarumma last summer, but they brought someone in last summer, but he's been dropped at some point over the course of the season to put the one in they had on yesterday. Savanov, who in the first half had a few really shaky moments, and the whole PSG defence in general looked quite shaky. When the moments where Arsenal did get forward after taking the lead, the limited action they did have in the PSG penalty box, they looked a bit dodgy. They looked shaky, and it looked like maybe if Arsenal could hit them on the break at the right moment, chance could be there to maybe even get the second. But they wasn't getting the corners really in the first half, and not up till right at the end of the second half. I think towards the end of the second half they didn't really get many corners, and that was a shame for Arsenal really not having those corners, because they could have really utilised that. PSG not a very tall team. Arsenal got a lot of height in that team, and we know how good their set pieces are. That's their best, one of the things they do best, one of the things they utilise best. Obviously, as we know, of course, from the course of the whole season, that's been a massive part in their title win. So that would have been a bit of a shame for them. There's always going to be interesting individual battles in this game. It was always going to be a case of how well Arsenal contained PSG, but they did that so well in the first half. I have to say they were excellent in the way they dealt with PSG in that first half. Kvaratskhelia just wasn't getting the time on the ball in that first half. Playing with a lot of energy, he was getting, he seems to switch sides quite a bit as well, and he was doing all of that. All his movement was good, but I don't know, he just wasn't getting on the ball, and he just wasn't getting the balls through to Desiree, who they were keeping very quiet. I don't know if they sort of almost doubled down on him, but they were doing so well, those Arsenal defenders, to keep them quiet. Dembele just wasn't happening for him. Didn't have the best of games, to be perfectly honest, yesterday. Dembele, particularly in that first half, was just non-existent. And like I say, the midfielders were just being contained as well. They just wasn't able to open up any sort of ball forward. PSG dominating the possession, about 75% possession for most of the first half, but unable to find the breakthrough, unable to get the ball through. That final ball really not there for them. And like I said, Arsenal were really frustrating them. And then there was maybe a slim glimmer of like maybe Arsenal could actually hold out for a 1-0, which as that would have been the dream for them before the game, win 1-0 like they do against many teams. But because PSG are just so prolific in front of goal, it was just seemed like it would be a step too far. But no, they did everyone for the Arsenal team just done a job so well in that first half. I thought there's excellent. With a bit of stoppage as well, of course. They did the drinks break, and we had the keeper going down, injured as well. The PSG keeper. I'm not really sure what happened there. It didn't really look anyone touched him. I'm not really sure what happened there, but that was a bit strange. But they did. I think towards the last sort of maybe 5 minutes of the half, the stoppage time, they had a few more half chances. PSG, Arsenal created a few of their own, but ultimately Raya for the first sort of, I think it's about 25-30 minutes or so, didn't really have a save. Don't think he touched the ball. That was because of how well they were keeping them at arm's length. PSG dominating the possession, but it felt like they wasn't dominating the game, just because Arsenal looked like to a point almost comfortable with their just defending them. In that second half, though, I think they did need to maybe start playing out a bit more Arsenal. I think they maybe sat a bit too deep at the start of the second half. And that's maybe how Kvaratskhelia then started to find a bit of time on the ball, which is what they needed ultimately, because that was when they really started to open it up a bit more. PSG. I was surprised they made no subs at half time. I expected some subs, but there wasn't any. But they did start to grow into this second half. They started that second half well, on the front foot again as well. But ultimately, because they was able to, they looked more likely in the start of the second half than the end of the first half. I've got to say that. And when Kvaratskhelia was running down on that left-hand side, that was when this big challenge coming from Mosquera, who was on a booking already, got him right at the start of the half, the second half, and then no question it was a penalty. I would say definite penalty. The only thing, but what the question is though, is should it have been a sending off, or it could have been a second yellow, which would have been a sending off. And I was thinking he was going to be gone for a minute. I thought he was going to get sent off, but referee doesn't give it. Especially when you look at the state Kvaratskelia's leg was in, I really thought they was going to give that as a reckless challenge. That's the only thing Arsenal have actually done wrong, I would say, in the 90 as well. That was the only thing they actually done wrong. If it wasn't for that moment, that one dodgy moment of defending, in what was otherwise an excellent defensive display, I think chances are, they continue to frustrate PSG, maybe when they make changes of their own, I think the chances are they hold out for the 1-0 win. I really think that could have been a very different scenario if they had just not given that penalty away. That was the moment that got them back into the game. Dembele, like I said, didn't think he had a great game, but of course he puts the penalty away, and from there PSG are right back in it. And from there it feels really open again and really much, like it could go either way again. Because up to that point, I think PSG starting, if they didn't get a penalty, just starting to get a bit worried, thinking, "Oh, are Arsenal gonna hold out?" Because the longer it goes on, the more and more risk there would be as well for PSG to go for the goal as well. But that goal, I think it needed the early goal game to really open it up, and then that goal really brought the game back into life because and what I think as well is, despite PSG having more of the ball, that didn't really phase Arsenal. They didn't really they didn't sit back after that at all really, and they obviously made their subs. They the end of the half, there was some chances either way. PSG, I think, were probably shooting a bit too far out. I don't know why they were doing that. They were doing quite a lot of long shots. I'm not really sure what that was about. We did see them. It took up a while to get some subs on PSG as well. But Ricola, when he came on, he was excellent. Absolutely brilliant. And you notice as well, before Kvaratskhelia could do any more damage they would probably try and get him sent off Mosquera, so they subbed him straight away, which is the right thing to do to get Timber on for sure after that, because he wouldn't. It was only a matter of time, I think, with him going up against Kvaratskhelia. But we see quite a few chances towards the end of the game, most of them falling to PSG. Arsenal having some good moments as well, and right in that last minute, Ricola running through on goal, it just takes that touch which brings him away from the goal. If it wasn't for that, I thought PSG were going to win the game there in the dying seconds, in the 6th minute of stoppage time, the last kick of the game. But no, we go to extra time, and by that point, Arsenal, they get Eze on, they get Zubimendi on, they get the subs on, and well, like I said, I think they also did do the slight different formation. Arsenal, so I think they usually do the 4-3-3. That's what we used to. But I think when they use Odegaard, they utilise the other formation where they do the 4-3-1, the diamond that we see a lot of teams set up with now, where Odegaard can go as like a 10 behind the striker, which obviously the striker end up, for the start was Havertz. When Gyökeres come on, I think he drops a bit deeper. But big cool start Trossard, but I thought Trossard overall, Martinelli we see come on in the end, but I thought Trossard overall done pretty well. I think the reason they started him is mainly because he has that defensive side to his game as well. I think he offers that as well. And through the extra time, of course, it's close. It's a very close game. I think, a lot of people predicted easy PSG wins. I think, it was much closer in the betting. I think PSG were much slimmer favourites than I thought they would be. And I did think it would be close, and it was a hard game to try and call, hard game to try and predict, and it was the same when it was being played. I couldn't tell what way it was going to go, and it was a very good game as well. I enjoyed it, I have to say as well. I thought it was one of the better Champions League finals we've seen over recent years, one of the best ones we've seen in the world. And I think it's a game that will live long in the memory as well, because of how it ended, of course, how it was decided ultimately, which we'll get to, because of how in PSG going back to back, Arsenal in the final. I think it was a memorable final. It was an enjoyable final. Quite often we see these really cagey, really nervy Champions League finals where it's only a 1-0 win or whatever. This one was really entertaining, and it had everything you want from a football game, I think. And like I said, you don't always see the best of teams in these types of games as they set up to try and win the game. But what I think it did, it had enough action in the game, more than enough, to be very, to be a very enjoyable game. And it was really good atmosphere around the game as well. Lovely stadium, Budapest. We see a lot of big games there in recent years, and great pre-match show. Really good atmosphere, really good whole feel around the game. The build-up was great. A lot of excitement. I thought both sets of supporters fantastic. I've got to say, and yeah, it's enjoyable occasion as well as a match. And I really enjoyed the game as well. I thought the game was exciting. I thought it was hard to call. I thought, it felt like a game that could go either way for most of the game, especially when it went to extra time. It really felt like, it's going to be close. It was. We obviously had start of extra time. We had Mantuaki. Penalty shout overturned. Not enough in that for me for a penalty. Extra time can often be a bit quiet. It's a case of do not lose the game at times. And PSG did create their chances as well in extra time. But the more and more it went on, the more and more it looked like we'll get a penalty shootout, and ultimately that's what we got in the end. That's how the game was decided. The deciding moment being Gabriel, who absolutely excellent for the entire game, absolutely brilliant. But ultimately, that will live long in the memory. That bad uh, penalty miss, which was ultimately the game was ultimately decided by his penalty miss. But so when we go to penalties, what we do see is PSG taking first, and trying to remember the order of the penalties. We obviously have Gonzalo Ramos. A big chance for Gonzalo Ramos at the end. Well, say chance for him. He should probably, I think in that extra time, PSG's a chance that really stood out for me in that extra time, where they maybe could have won it. Was that cross that come in that Raya was able to get. I think Gonzalo Ramos, I think he's got to go for that. But he scores his first penalty, Ramos. Then we also see Gyökeres step up, get his. There's a Doi scores. Arsenal's second was where they missed. This is where the shootout got quite interesting. Eze, player I did not expect to miss, messes his run up. I never like it when the players stop directly before they take the penalty, and then he sends it wide. He completely messed the run up, completely messed up the penalty, and yeah, bad miss. And from there, it's advantage PSG, but they don't take full advantage. Mendes' misses, not a great penalty, no, on target, but I think you've got to put more behind it on that. I think you've got to put more on it. Good save equally from Raya, but penalty needs to have more on it, I think. And then Declan Rice is able to level it again for Arsenal. Now it's all even again. That could go either way again. We see Hakimi score, Martinelli score, Beraldo got what ultimately was the winning penalty for PSG there. 4-3 up. Arsenal have to score to take it to some death. And Gabriel steps up, and there's a big call to step him up for the fifth one. And to be honest, I didn't think he wanted it. And ultimately, it was a bad miss, and it's one that will be remembered for a while. It was that's quite often how these penalty shootouts are decided. It's a miss like that that does decide it. And for Arsenal, fair play to them. They made this final. They were very good the whole way through, particularly with their defensive displays in the Champions League. They topped the league phase. They were being excellent over the course of this entire season. Fell a bit short yesterday. Being a Chelsea fan, obviously, I'm not going to pretend I was watching it as a neutral. Of course, I would have wanted Arsenal. I was happy with the result, but I would have wanted Arsenal to lose. I was happy with the result, but of course, I will say, fantastic season, and to be honest, good display, great display yesterday overall. Really, the way they managed to contain the European champions for quite a long time as well. But PSG had to do it the hard way, but got there in the end, got over the line. You can see what it meant to the team at the end, how much they were celebrating. Luis Enrique definitely won't be going anywhere now. There's been slim rumours of him maybe moving on. That looks like a team that's hungry to go again next season, that wants to achieve more. That wants to go for 3 in a row, which was done by Real Madrid a while back. That was the last time we've really seen that sustained period of domination from anyone over Europe. And the PSG were the better side overall. I think they were the team that probably played the better football, and they were the team that probably had more to say for themselves in the game overall over the course of the 120 minutes, and ultimately stepped up in the big moments in the penalty shootout. But it really was close. It really could have gone either way. And when it went to penalties, it was a flip of a coin. It really was. And it was an enjoyable game. I really did enjoy it. And I thought, it was, a game that goes down to the wire like that. It wasn't just a one-goal game, but both teams, got a goal. It was enjoyable. It really was. And PSG, massive congratulations to them, to Luis Enrique, to his players. They've been fantastic. Luis Enrique, one of the all-time greats in terms of managers. Unbelievable record, particularly in the Champions League. Unbelievable. He's done. But Mikel Arteta as well. He's taken this Arsenal team so far. This is a big. They got over the major hurdle this season of winning the Premier League at last. And they've got something to really go for next season. Now they'll be hungry to go again for try and get their hands on this Champions League. Now that was a horrible way to lose it. The worst way you can possibly lose any final. And they was, a bit unfortunate. Game goes slightly differently. They don't want one bad moment in that 90 minutes. Ultimately, I think was what cost them. That bad challenge really was the only reason they wasn't able to see the game out, perhaps. But yeah, PSG again, unbelievable, back-to-back European champions. That's quite something. It's taken them so long to get their hands on this trophy, and they've now done it twice in a row. And making back-to-back finals is something, but winning them both it's another thing entirely, and they are really, really going to take some beating next season in the Champions League. Such a, their lineup just picks itself. One of the most settled teams I've ever seen. If there's anywhere to improve, it's that defence. But they're one of the most settled teams you could ever imagine. They're just quality in every position, absolute quality. And so congratulations to them. Fair play to Arsenal. They certainly played the part in that final as well. And ultimately, it was a really close contest. Could have gone either way. So that's about it really. That's Champions League final for this season. Ultimately, in the end, 1-1 and 4-3 victory to PSG on penalties. Thank you everyone for watching this video, and I will see you again very soon. More videos coming up over the course of this week. Some point soon, we'll be doing World Cup predictions and all sorts of stuff like that coming up. Some World Cup stuff. And that sort of thing coming up with the World Cup being only 2 weeks away. So yes, look out for that.